Hey guys, Mark here. Today we're going to talk about triplets. What they are, what they aren't, and how we count them in their most basic groups. Now, triplets are usually a group of 3 notes. Technically, there could be subdivisions that involve more than 3 notes, or they could also be a combination of notes and rests. But for the sake of learning how triplets work, we'll just look at groups that have 3 actual notes. And to start, let's make sure we know what triplets actually look like. Now, each of these are examples of some common triplets that you might come across. Firstly, notice how they are all identified by the little number 3 above the notes. Just be aware that the 3 can sometimes appear below the notes instead of above them. Now, in these examples, there's a small bracket over the note group to clearly identify that these notes are triplets. Again, just be aware that sometimes a small little curve instead of a bracket could be there. In these examples, though, notice that there is no bracket or curve, as you generally don't need to include one when the notes are beamed together like these are. So, the important thing to remember is that if there is a 3 above or below the notes, then they are triplets. If there is not a 3, then they are not triplets, even if other things might seem to suggest that they could be. Now, this seems pretty obvious, but this simple rule trips up a surprising number of music students. For example, this is not a triplet. Just because they happen to be a group of 3 notes that are beamed together does not necessarily make them a triplet. This is simply a full measure of eighth notes in 3/8 time, 3 beats per measure, and each eighth note equals 1 full beat. Since there is no small 3 above the notes, then they cannot be triplets. Now, this measure, however, shows 2 full sets of triplets. You can tell because the number 3 is above the groupings. In fact, it's a full measure of triplets in 2/4 time. The 3 must appear above the notes to show that they are triplets. Okay, now let's talk about how we count these things and how the timing of triplets works. Let's start by looking at a basic measure of 4/4 time that has some quarter notes and eighth notes. I'm going to have my metronome playing quarter notes for us at 60 beats per minute. As you probably know, we count this measure as 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, let's replace the 2 eighth notes on beat 3 with triplets. You can see that the type of triplets I'm using here also look like eighth notes. They have only 1 beam across the top of the stems, just like eighth notes do. But we know that these are triplets, again, because of the little number 3 above them. And that's the way that triplets work, where there could otherwise be exactly 2 eighth notes. Then I use triplets that look like eighth notes, and these are known as eighth note triplets. It's pretty straightforward in that sense. What I'm going to do now is play the measure, and when I get to beat 3, which I previously had divided into 2 even rhythmic parts, eighth notes counted 3 and, now my triplet divides it into 3 even rhythmic parts. Now, there are a lot of different ways that different folks count triplets, the division of a beat into 3 even parts. And I'm not here to tell you that any of them are incorrect necessarily, but the method that I usually prefer is to sort of overpronounce the word triplet, which normally has 2 syllables, but when I overpronounce it, I use 3 syllables that sound like this: triplet. And each syllable in my overpronunciation lines up with one of the 3 partials of a group of the 3 notes in a triplet. So for this video, we're going to go with that. So this measure that you see would sound like this. 1, 2, triplet 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice the first time I counted, I used my syllables triplet in place of beat 3, across beat 3. I didn't say the syllable 3 though. I just have it written above for you to be able to know that the first note in the triplet happens on the downbeat at the very beginning of beat 3. You can also count them the way I did during the second measure, which is you simply subdivide the triplets in your mind and you count just the quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's look at that one more time. I'll count each measure the same way it is written above the notes. 1, 2, triplet 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I move the triplets to beat 2, then we have this. 1, triplet 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I put 2 full sets of eighth note triplets back to back on beats 2 and 3, then we have this. 1, triplet, triplet 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's look at some faster triplets, 16th note triplets. In this example, we have 2 16th notes and an 8th note on beat 3, a rhythm that we would normally count as 3E and. So that measure would sound like this. 1, 2, 3E and 4. Now, let's replace these 2 16th notes on the first half of beat 3 with a full set of 16th note triplets. Again, this is the way that triplets work. Where there could have otherwise existed exactly 2 16th notes, I can use triplets that look like 16th notes. They have 2 horizontal bars across the top joining their stems. And these are known as, you guessed it, 16th note triplets. Whatever kind of note there would otherwise be 2 of across a certain period of time, then that is the type of note that you use to create the basic triplet division. Where there could be 2 16th notes, I can fit 3 16th note triplets. Where there could be 2 8th notes, I can fit 3 8th note triplets. Where there could be 2 quarter notes, I can fit 3 quarter note triplets even. We'll talk about the quarter note triplets a little later. For now, let's get back to our example with the 16th note triplets. Now remember that the top line here sounded like this. 1, 2, 3E and 4. Our 16th note triplet example sounds like this. 1, 2, triplet and 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now for clarity, I've added brackets above the notes that are included in the triplet here, even though I wouldn't normally necessarily do that since the triplets are already beamed together in a group. Notice that the and of beat 3 is still there after the triplet. The 3 16th note triplets are only replacing the first 2 16th notes, the 1 and E, that exist on the first half of beat 3. The second half of beat 3 is occupied by that 8th note that the 3 triplets are beamed to, which is positioned on the and of 3. Triplet and. The and is the 8th note that takes up the second half of the beat. Let's play it again. 1, 2, triplet and 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Let's add some 8th notes on beats 1 and 2 to help us set up our timing for this. 1 and 2 and triplet and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Make sense? Now let's move the 8th note to the first half of beat 3 and the triplet to the second half of beat 3. Now the triplet actually starts where we would normally say and. Here's what that example sounds like. 1, 2, 3, triplet 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's add some eighth notes again to beats 1 and 2 to help us set up our timing. 1 and 2 and 3, triplet 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And if I put 2 full sets of 16th note triplets back to back, then we could have an example like this. 1 and 2 and triplet 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Now let's shift those 2 sets of 16th note triplets over a half of a beat and start them on the and of beat 2. 1 and 2, triplet and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Make sense? Finally, let's look at quarter note triplets. First, let's look at a measure with 4 quarter notes. The notes in this measure are really just our most basic counting that we do in 4/4 time. 1, 2, 3, 4. No problems there, right? Now, let's add the quarter note triplets. In this scenario, the quarter note triplets would replace 2 regular quarter notes. In this example, they occur across beats 1 and 2, and then we play beats 3 and 4 as regular quarter notes. Now, these can be a little trickier to time out evenly for folks sometimes, but there are some methods that you can learn to help you do it correctly. We'll address those in another video lesson. For now, let me just simply show you what this sounds like played in time. I'll start by playing a measure of 4 quarter notes, and then I'll play a measure with 3 quarter note triplets across beats 1 and 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Triplet 3, 4. Beats 1 and 2 at this tempo in 4/4 time occupy a lot of time to try to have to subdivide into just a simple group of 3 notes. So it can be a little strange. Again, there's some tricks to know how to do this better that we'll address later on in other videos. Keep drumming and keep making music. Thanks, guys.